up, Sauce Gang, and welcome back to the channel. Hot Sauce Beats here with another banger reaction for you. Ever since we started reacting to OverSimplified, one video has been requested from you guys non-stop, and I'm talking about Neil Halloran's The Fallen of World War II. Now, even though I'm a military veteran that was in the Navy for 11 years, there is still so much about World War II that I don't know. Most of the stuff I know is about submarines, because I was on submarines, but outside of that, there's a plethora of information I do not know. So I'm looking forward to seeing what we learn about here in the history of World War II. But before we jump into this video, make sure you show Neil Halloran some love by subscribing to his channel. And if you enjoy my reaction, smash that subscribe button because it greatly helps. But enough talking, let's get to reacting and roll that bomb-ass intro.
Hot Sauce Beats is finally here. Hot Sauce Beats is finally here. Eat, sleep, make beats. Eat, sleep, make beats.
Hot Sauce Beats. Woo, woo. Oh, let's go, Sauce Gang. Let's get our learn on. Come on now. I'm curious, like, I've never seen anything by this Neil Halloran before.
American is 80 years. And an 80-year-old today was 10 when World War II ended. Wow. 4 when it began.
See, chat, I'm not that old. All the crap you give me, I'm not that old. I'm not that old.
A soldier who saw battle would have to be in his late 80s, at least today. Generals, political leaders.
There's not many World War II vets left.
Few are still with us.
I'm guessing that's where he's going with this.
And over the past few decades, we've seen authors and filmmakers rush to capture stories from survivors before this connection of memory is lost.
Dude, this is gonna be an emotional video,
This
ain't it,
project
fam?
is not about individual war stories, and it's not about survivors. We're going to tally up the tens of millions of people whose lives were cut short by the war.
I think it's something like,
and see how
what,
these
80
numbers
million,
stack up
right?
to other wars in history, including trends in recent conflicts.
Wish I could
We'll
draw
be
that
counting
good with
soldiers
chalk.
and civilians separately. Each of these figures represents 1,000 people who died. Civilians were of all walks of life, whereas military deaths were almost entirely men. The average age was about 23.
Wow.
In most battles, for every 1,000 soldiers killed, there are more than 1,000 who are injured. The word casualty can be confusing because in military speak, it often includes both deaths and injuries, and anything else that
I did not know that. I thought when they say casualties, wow, I'm already learning, dude. I thought whenever you hear about casualties of war, I thought a casualty equaled a death. I did not know. I can already tell this animation, this video, the editing, this is insane.
takes a soldier out of service. Here, we're just counting the deaths. And we'll begin with American soldiers.
Dude, this is gonna be sad, I already know. I already can tell. So each one of those is 1,000 people, right?
Over 400,000 died. Most of the deaths occurred in the European theater.
Wow. I wonder how much of the American deaths were on, say, like Normandy when we stormed the beaches. Pacific. God, I would have thought there was more deaths in the Pacific theater. Okay.
Fighting the Nazis. And about a quarter were in the Pacific, fighting the Japanese. When you put them on the timeline, you see that casualties were the heaviest at the end of the war. The war began on September 1st, 1939.
Bro, why is there this like massive peak in May? Oh, is that Pearl Harbor? And I know I'm gonna sound stupid. I think that's Pearl Harbor.
But the US wasn't willing to join the fight until Pearl Harbor, 2 years in.
Is right before, okay.
The deaths increased drastically on D-Day, when the Allies invaded Normandy. One of the most tragic moments of the war was on D-Day at Omaha Beach, where 2,500 Americans fell.
Jesus.
So about the same number of US soldiers died on this single beach landing as the entire 13 years of the recent war in Afghanistan.
Wow. Wow.
The bloodiest battle in the Pacific was Okinawa, which lasted 82 days, during which 12,500 Americans died. About 5,000 of these deaths were at sea from kamikaze attacks.
Jeez.
Now let's look at some other countries, starting with Europe.
Dude, I'm not. So, and any death is insane and wrong. And again, remember, no one wins in war. Everyone loses. But we already know, especially from reacting to OverSimplified's World War II videos, Russia, I mean, it was like, we lost 400,000 people. Russia, a lot of countries are in the millions, but Russia was something like 20 million or something. And so the craziest thing about Russia was, I want to say it was something like 75% of all Russian deaths were civilians, women, children, civilians.
Germany started World War II when it invaded Poland. Poland ultimately lost 200,000 soldiers in the war.
Wow.
Most died after the invasion while the country was occupied by Germany and the Soviet Union.
What?
Germany,
Wow.
meanwhile, lost just 16,000 in the invasion of Poland. The Nazis went on to invade and conquer other countries, including Denmark, Belgium, the Netherlands, France, Greece, and Yugoslavia. France surrendered, but after losing 92,000 soldiers in the Battle of France. Over 200,000 ultimately fell,
After
which
the
includes
surrender.
deaths in POW camps, French colonies, and other fighting. Yugoslavia suffered almost 500,000 military deaths. The initial invasion brought relatively few casualties on both sides. But the death—
Dude, this is maddening. Maddening. Goodness, words really, I struggle with words sometimes. Dude, almost like every country. Post-invasion, dude. Like, they're surrendered. You've taken over our country. Look at that. That is and I'm not saying the invasion people had to die. That's not what I'm saying, but they were fighting to protect their country from being invaded. The rest of these, like, the country was already ran by Germany, and yet, I mean, was that 20 times more? More than that? No, way more than that. 30, 40 times more?
deaths mounted under Nazi occupation due to guerrilla fighting, civil conflict, and mass executions.
Jesus, dude.
The Nazi invasions were swift, with relatively few German losses. Even the Nazi commanders expressed surprise at their success. And then we have the United Kingdom and the United States, who were not invaded but took the fight to the Nazis. Britain lost about the same number of soldiers as the US,
Almost
which includes
exact
the British
same.
colonies. Germany lost about 500,000 soldiers fighting the US and Britain in what is known as the Western Front, which took place in France and Belgium.
Not talking about the Eastern Front yet. Not talking about the, yeah, here we go,
But
dude.
most
This
Nazi
is,
soldiers died in the Eastern Front.
this is crazy.
Germany's unsuccessful invasion of the Soviet
Oh man, my bad. Don't forget, I think we're just talking about soldiers, right? This is still soldiers we're talking about.
Union. The numbers are staggering. The most famous battle of the Eastern Front, and perhaps the turning point of the European war, was Stalingrad. The German Sixth Army successfully took Stalingrad, but then got surrounded by the Soviets and cut off from food and ammunition. 500,000 Nazis would ultimately die in Stalingrad. Another 100,000 were taken prisoner, of which 6,000 would ever return. POWs had a low survival rate throughout World War II, and it was particularly grim in the East. When you include these POWs, roughly the same number of Germans died in Stalingrad as all the Western Front fighting against France, the UK, and the US. And though Stalingrad was a victory for the Soviets, they suffered almost twice as many losses as Germany.
Dude, this is, again, so I think they say roughly like 50 to 80 million people total died, and that's civilians and soldiers. But that's such a large number that you just can't comprehend. I mean, it's astronomical. And when you just see a number, it's just a number, right? Visually, you're not seeing anything. You're just trying to grasp a number that you don't understand. And what is making this video so impactful is this chart of just these figurines, and you get a, I mean, dude, Stalin, like, what was that's a $500,000, so that's roughly $1 million. So roughly 1.5 million people died at Stalingrad. Wow. And we're still
the Soviet
going.
Union would eventually defeat
These are
the once
towers,
unstoppable
dude.
German army, killing 2.3 million Nazi soldiers.
That's nothing compared to Russia. Oh my goodness, dude, this is sick.
But winning the war,
This is sickening, fam. None of these people had to die. Not a single one, except for maybe Hitler. Dude, it's still going. Like I said, I think it's something like 20 million. Shut up, dude. Dude, this hurts to watch. And remember, each one of those is 1,000 people. Dude, this is sick.
8.7 million is the official tally by the Russian military, a hotly disputed number. Some studies have calculated as many as 14 million dead.
Dude, again, that's just military.
To complete the count of European military deaths, we need to add German deaths from other fronts, including the North and Africa, as well as deaths from other Axis powers allied with the Nazis: Hungary, Romania, and Italy. When you put these European military deaths on the timeline, it looks like this. You can now interact with the chart to learn more. Pause the narration if you would like more time.
And what's is this gap here? Hold on, chat. Is this gap? Is this winter? Right? Because I'm guessing this was when they made the pass. When essentially Germany started moving into Russia, crazy amounts of deaths. I'm guessing this is when winter moved in. Cause dude, look at, I'm trying to like scroll up it like an idiot. Dude, if this don't make you sick to your
Interact with the chart to learn
stomach,
more.
man.
Pause the narration if you would like more time. And now we switch to civilian deaths in Europe.
Oh, I'm not ready for this part. I mean, the numbers are... I don't even know a word.
6 million Jewish people were killed in the Holocaust. If you separate this by country, you see that about half, 2.7 million, were Polish. 700,000 were Soviets, followed by Hungary and 17 other countries. Broken down another way, about half of the 6 million were killed in the concentration camps.
Wow.
Over 1 million died in Auschwitz.
Wow.
Most were killed in the gas chambers. Others died from starvation, exhaustion, disease, and other forms of execution. The second most deadly camp was Treblinka, which was exclusively an extermination camp, set up to look like a train station. Mobile killing groups killed 1.4 million Jews.
It's a mobile killing group. Just mass execution?
Like with the gas chambers, men were killed first to reduce the risk of revolt.
This is pure evil. Pure evil, man.
The Holocaust also includes non-Jewish deaths. Between 130,000 to 500,000 Roma, then called Gypsies, were killed. The numbers are disputed.
I didn't even know about that.
About 250,000 people with disabilities were killed. Homosexuals, Catholics, and other groups were also exterminated.
I did know about that. Yeah, I mean, Hitler, if anyone had any sort of a disability, anyone who is, part of the LGBTQ community, I mean...
But their numbers were relatively small. Some historians say that other civilian deaths should go under the label of Holocaust. About 2 million non-Jewish Poles were killed under German occupation, some of which were sent to the gas chambers at Auschwitz. When you combine civilian and military deaths, over 16% of the total Polish population died in World War II, which is the highest percentage of any country. But not the highest in total death count.
No,
The Soviet
Russia.
Union again tops that list, losing at least as many civilians as it did soldiers, somewhere between 10 and 20 million. A particularly dark moment for the Soviet Union was the siege of Leningrad, now St. Petersburg. German forces surrounded Leningrad before civilians could be evacuated. Supplies, including food, were cut off for 2.5 years. 1.5 million people died as a result, mostly from starvation, mostly civilians. Stalin's cruelty towards his own people is partly responsible for these numbers. He often didn't allow civilians to evacuate from cities, thinking it would cause the soldiers protecting them to fight harder. About 1 million Soviets died in Stalin's own labor camps, called the Gulag.
What? His
Just about
own
every
labor
country
camps?
suffered civilian losses, especially countries who were invaded. While many died as a result of so-called collateral damage, the biggest numbers occurred when it was no accident. Civilians were exterminated, purposely fired upon or bombed, used as human shields, or intentionally deprived of food. The intentional killing of civilians was done by most warring parties, including the United Kingdom and the United States. The United Kingdom was spared of a land invasion, but still lost 60,000 civilians, largely from German air raids or blitzes, often directed at civilian population centers. The UK did the same to German cities at a much greater magnitude, causing about 10 times the number of deaths. But most German civilian deaths came from the ground at the late stage of the war. When the Nazi regime collapsed, civilians living in occupied regions had to desperately flee from the advancing Soviet army. Rapes were widespread, and death estimates ranged from 600,000 to 3 million. Let's step back and
Wow, dude, this is... I mean, you can't even react to this, dude. There's nothing to say. Like, this is... God, it just...
see where we are with the totals. We just counted about 20 million civilian deaths in Europe. If you add this to the European military deaths we already covered, it brings us to over 40 million. Then we have the Asian theater. Here we see the vast majority of military deaths in Asia came from China and Japan. On the civilian side, about 6 million deaths from China, Indonesia, Korea, Indochina, and the Philippines can be attributed to Japanese war crimes, which are sometimes compared to the Nazi atrocities due to the sheer scale of the cruelty.
I didn't know about all
China
this either.
had the second highest death count after the Soviet Union. And like the Soviets, the Chinese government demonstrated a stunning willingness to sacrifice its own people. Chinese nationalists opened the dike at the Yellow River, hoping the flood would halt the Japanese advance. 500,000 Chinese civilians or more were killed, which is 2 or 3 times the number who died in all countries in the 2004 Asian tsunamis.
Dude, I didn't even realize so many people in China died. I didn't even realize they were so involved in the war, and maybe that's just me being an idiot. I mean, I know they fought a lot with Japan, but holy cow, bro.
But the invasion of China only cost Japan 200,000 soldiers. Most were killed fighting the US and allies in the Pacific War. A significant portion of Japanese civilian deaths were caused by American firebombing and the 2 nuclear attacks. Contrary to official US statements, these airstrikes were directed at civilian populations, not military targets. When you add all the deaths outside of Europe, it brings us to a grand total of 70 million for the war, give or take depending on who's counting and what civilian deaths get included.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. They say roughly between 50 and 80 million people died, because there's a lot of dispute on what to count, you know, what civilian deaths count and all this stuff. And I mean, Dude, it doesn't even matter, fam. It's all just, it makes you sick to your stomach, all of it. Whether it's 50 million, 80 million, none of it needed to happen. None of it. Not a single bit of it. And I mean, what is he even saying here? Like, probably at least a quarter. So out of all the countries combined, probably 25% of these deaths, like, legitimately didn't need to happen. Bare minimum. But I mean, like, their own country killed them. Like he said, what, 500,000 people died because they flooded. They flooded the wars, or what was it? I think it was 1.5 million died in, was it Stalingrad or St. Peter's? There's so many names to keep track of, but I mean, that's their own countries killing their own people. You know, and then, you know, the US dropped the nukes.
More people died in World War II than in any other war in history. For comparison, here are 20 or so of the very worst wars and atrocities we have on record.
Hold on. What is? So is this all the fall of the Ming Dynasty? 25 million American Indians. Holy cow, dude. 20. Wow, I didn't realize that number's that high. So is Mao? Is that, I'm guessing, another Chinese dynasty? And again, I know I sound like an idiot. 8 million died in Congo. What?
Some of these are more of atrocities than wars, but we've seen how that distinction can get blurry. Some of these spanned across centuries. World War II had the highest body count, and it all happened in just 6 years.
Congo conquest?
The world's population has grown significantly since the earliest atrocities on this list.
Dude, there's 2.
If we want to compare them in terms of what percentage of the world died, we can adjust the chart to look like this. This rough approximation tells us there may have been more devastating wars before World War II, proportionally speaking.
What?
When we turn to post-war conflicts, it's hard to say anything that isn't controversial. But the data shows something quite extraordinary has been happening. In 1989, John Gaddis coined the phrase the long peace to identify the absence of conflict between the nuclear powers during the Cold War. 25 years later, the Cold War is over, and the term is still being used, although its meaning may have shifted. European countries have not fought each other, except for this 10-day war in 1956 when the Soviet Union invaded Hungary. When we look at European wars before World War II, it looks like this. They tend to be more frequent as you go back, though smaller in scale. And the largest 44 economies of the world have not battled each other since World War II.
Wow.
Rich countries have fought poorer countries, like the US versus Iraq. But rich countries have not fought other rich countries. Such a period of peace between the so-called great powers hasn't been seen since the Roman Empire. To many, peace is too strong of a word. Wars have occurred since World War II, and they can be grouped into these 4 categories. We don't see colonial wars anymore. We've already noted that interstate wars between rich countries have not occurred at all, and here we see wars involving smaller economies have tapered off. That leaves civil wars of 2 types, with and without foreign intervention. And this is what these battle deaths look like alongside of World War II. More people died fighting in World War II than in all the wars since. And again, we can't forget about world population, which has almost tripled since World War II. If we scale these numbers to show deaths in proportion to world population, showing the likelihood that a person on Earth dies in battle, the downward trend becomes even more pronounced. Now, this isn't to infer anything about why this trend is occurring. That's a discussion for another day. You can now interact with this chart to explore what conflicts are behind the totals. Now, bear in mind, we're just looking at battle deaths here, not civilian deaths, but those too are in decline. Peace is a difficult thing to measure. It's a bit like counting the people who didn't die in wars that never happened.
Wow.
We give such importance to the word peace, but we don't tend to notice it when it occurs or report on Sometimes it takes reminding ourselves of how terrible war once was to see the peace that has been growing around us.
It's very true.
Of course, this trend may not continue, and it's not clear how looking at these charts can help us make the right decisions to ensure that it does.
Can we just say how amazing this video is?
But the longer the long peace grows, the more significant it becomes. So if watching the news doesn't make us feel hopeful about where things are heading, watching the numbers might.
Wow, that's crazy. That is crazy. Sheesh. Wow. Dude, what?
Thank you very much.
I am absolute speechless. Subscribe, all. How many other videos does he have? Oh, just 5. Chat, have you guys seen any of these other ones? Simulation of a nuclear blast in a major... Oh, wow. All right, let me bring you in. I don't really want to play music right now. Yeah, that's I mean, I've been teary-eyed for about the last half of that, and I don't know, it's just again, when you hear the number 50 to 80 million deaths, you can't fathom it. It's unfathomable. You can't understand that large of a number because you've never seen that number. You know, yes, maybe you've seen it written out, 1 million, 2 million, whatever, how much money Elon Musk has, blah, 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 but you've never seen that number. And when he breaks down, blah, this represents 1,000 people. This is what 1,000 people looks like. And it zooms out. Now it's 1. And then it just, again, dude, just the amount of civilian deaths that, again, and I'm not any death. I mean, in the grand scheme of things, is one death more tragic than the other? Yes. I mean, all life is equal, but a baby dying is more tragic than a soldier. Again, all life's equal, but I don't know, something about civilian deaths and women and children just makes it more. And there's civilian men too, don't get me wrong. But it's just so tragic. And then the country's killing their own freaking people. And then the U.S. just dropping nukes on civilians. I mean, it just... well, hopefully this new peace and peacetime keeps going, because, I mean, it's just... it's a scary thought of a World War III and how things would be fought nowadays with technology and nukes and cyber and... and there's things that we don't even know about. I don't even know. None of us do. Who knows what our countries are capable of? And wow. But anyways, yeah, sorry this is so... I know I'm usually more lively on reactions. This is, you can't give a happy reaction to this, and half of this video you're speechless because your brain is actually starting to conceive what that number 50 to 80 million looks like. Like, you can't... It's sick. It's disgusting. But anyways, long story short, I mean, this video is beautifully done. It's the first time I've ever saw a video talk about World War II deaths in a way that you can comprehend it, and the way that it was done was amazing. Again, it allowed you to comprehend it. Yeah, let me know. Have you guys seen any of Neil Halloran's other ones? And maybe we'll peep those out. This was beautifully done. Amazing. This video is arguably one of the saddest videos I've ever seen. And it's about real life. So, hey, to the probably 50 to 100 of you that have requested this video and repeatedly, thank you so much. Again, I know a lot of you guys request videos, but I want you to know I do see them. I do listen to you guys. It's hard when, you know, you get like 30 to 50 requests a day. You obviously can't react to them all, but if it's something that I notice it's repeatedly getting requested, we check it out, and here we are. So, but yeah, make sure you show Neil some love by subscribing to his channel. Yeah, this was very eye-opening and tragic and sad and all the words that describe horrible stuff that's happened. Please help support the channel by smashing that subscribe and like button. It's absolutely free and it greatly helps out the channel. Hug your loved ones, kiss them, talk to some family, friends, whoever. Tell them, you know, how important they are to you guys, and give them a little tighter of a hug tonight. So, but enjoy the rest of your week, fam. Try and have a good day, and remember, it's eat, sleep, and make beats, and as usual, be kind to one another. And that's all I got. Boom, I'm out. Got a bit of love for the Sauce Gang. Peace out, Sauce Gang. I'm usually way more lively than that. Yeah. Anyways, love you guys, and I appreciate all of you. Peace out. Woo woo.